this world, and we're all just paying the rent.
All hits all the time.
We are family.
Max Scherzer, double-digit Ks.
We're busting ours to kick yours.
Fun to watch.
Minus 15.
Respect all, fear none.
Into the upper deck.
Intensity is not a perfume.
Hello, Utah Street.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
From inside our two-bedroom apartment in downtown Baltimore, it is the MASN All Access Podcast. Paul Mancano and Brendan Mortensen here with you. As always, from a cold, frigid Baltimore, Maryland, we are not in Sarasota, Florida, though we wish to be. Yes. However, we are going to be talking about all the happenings of Sarasota, Florida.
As if we were there.
As if we were there. And we will also be later on in this podcast doing a fun little game. Ooh. You know, we like to draft,
and this will be better than the bird game that Paul came up with the last week.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be by default because that game was not the best.
No, it was very confusing. It made me do math at a far too early hour.
Yeah,
granted, it was like 11 a.m.
Yeah,
but if I'm doing math at any point before like 2 o'clock, it's too early for math.
It's a nightmare. So we are going to be drafting. You know, we like to draft things, and everybody likes to draft like fantasy teams.
When in doubt, fantasy draft.
When in doubt for coming up with a podcast, this is for anybody who has a podcast. Just draft. Just take any kind of field. We took pasta, and we drafted it.
That we did.
Now we actually have something to draft. We're going to be drafting the best Orioles players currently on the team. Now, we are including some guys who are not on the 40-man roster. Basically, some guys that we essentially think are going to make the 26-man roster, and then a few extra guys.
Yeah, it's guys that we felt like we would be remiss if they weren't at least possibilities to be drafted. So it's the higher-profile minor league signings, like Felix Hernandez, Matt Harvey, Wade LeBlanc, and Thomas Eshelman, I believe, are the four that we selected that are eligible to be drafted. But other than that, if you are on the Orioles 40-man roster, you are eligible to be selected. Guys like Adley Rutschman, who are not yet on the 40-man roster, we cannot draft as much as I might like to.
And, unfortunately, we're going to be stuck to the two catchers that are currently on the 40-man roster, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, Brendan, let's touch on the happenings down in Sarasota, Florida. A couple games now into the spring training slate. First and foremost, have to talk about Trey Mancini.
Have to.
Played in the first spring training game of spring, and played at first base, got 2 at-bats in, and got a single in his first at-bat.
Yeah.
Standing O, of course, for the select crowd down at Ed Smith Stadium. That will pale in comparison, I think, to the standing O that he will get when we get a full stadium full of fans. I don't know when that will be and where it will be exactly. Of course, the Orioles open the regular season at Fenway Park. Then they're home a week later. We don't know yet how many fans are going to be allowed, if there are fans, back in Baltimore. Where I think wherever this guy goes, he's going to get a standing ovation.
Yeah.
Like, I think that all season we're going to be seeing standing ovations for Trey Mancini in visiting ballparks. Well-deserved.
Yes. And it was funny, too, because he downplayed it a little bit, I think, going into spring training. He was talking about that he felt like the comeback would really be complete when he played the first game of the regular season. But I think once the moment was there and once he got the standing ovation from the fans at Ed Smith Stadium, even though it was just a spring training game, I think it probably meant more to him than he thought it would. It was probably a rush of emotions of like, wow, I've really gotten back to this point and we're back on a baseball field and playing an actual game against another team. And it was so awesome to see just how much it meant to Trey.
Yeah, I mean, he said it meant the world to him, and he was tearing up. And, he, of course, took a moment to acknowledge the fans. The umpire, of course, gave him a good amount of time to soak it all in.
Yes, thank you to the Pirates for letting that moment happen as well.
And like I said, I think like we're going to be seeing this everywhere, and we should. And it's just amazing. Like after he got that single, I sat there and thought about where he's come in a full year and where we were a year ago at this time. And I remember hearing about the diagnosis and thinking, I wonder if he's ever going to play. Obviously, first and foremost, worried about his health and getting through this. But then the next question is, is he ever going to play again?
Right.
And to sit here on it was the last day of February, and he's playing in a game at first base and gets a single in his first at bat was just, it was pretty amazing. And I think, it is something that is going to stir a lot of emotions in terms of Orioles fans as well. And if you haven't had a chance yet, if you do have The Athletic, I would go ahead and read the article by Dan Connolly about Trey Mancini and his return. It starts with at the very beginning of his baseball journey, and it's a series of interviews with all members of his family, his friends, his teammates, coaches. Mo Gaba is actually quoted in this article, and it goes up until, obviously, today, and it goes through his whole entire battle over the past year. Our former coworker, Sarah Perlman, and her help with Trey in terms of getting him through some things. So it is an incredible article if you have a chance to read it, just to kind of get even a better perspective on just how much it has taken from him, and just what an incredible man he is and person, because he really is. In our limited dealings, you never really know a player, but in our limited dealings with Trey, he has always been a class act. He has always been willing and eager to talk to people, to talk to the media, and he's always been, from our vantage point at least, a good teammate and a good friend. And the article just confirms everything that we knew about Trey.
Yeah, and the article is interesting too because it didn't start as a Trey Mancini is overcoming cancer article. Right. The article started as a feature about Trey Mancini, and then obviously the article took quite a 180 there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even from when I started as an intern a few years ago, Trey Mancini was about the nicest player that I have met, and just really a class guy, and you really couldn't have a better player to come back from all of this, and a better person, honestly.
And I think something that I can relate to Trey in that article, he talked about taking out his frustration after poor performances.
Yeah.
Throwing a $10 bat as far as he could into the woods after a poor game, I think at Delmarva or Aberdeen.
Yeah.
He talked about he hit the top of his car when he was driving home after a bad game so hard that he broke the light overhead. That I can relate to. You've seen me after a basketball game, Brendan.
Yeah.
I get the sore loser is the thing that's the only thing Trey and I have in common.
Yeah, driven by failure, you and Trey Mancini.
Trey Mancini. The accomplishments, not quite the same. But first, that is incredible, and that is going to be great. Of course, he's not going to be playing in every game. He's a veteran. He's earned the right to stay back for some road trips.
Yeah.
But he will be getting his fair shake during spring training to get him back into action. Other storylines, Brendan.
Yes.
We don't want to overreact to spring training at all.
But
That's the last thing we want to do, but we're going to do it.
Yeah.
DJ Stewart's making this team.
I think so.
I think DJ Stewart's making this team after that 2-run homer.
Yeah, he's been flashy so far in spring training, and I think there's a pretty good chance. We talked about who we thought might be on the opening day roster last week, and I thought that Ryan McKenna might have a hot spring training and get the edge over DJ Stewart. But I think if Stewart continues to play well in spring training, there is probably no reason that Mike Elias and company won't at least give him one more shot at sticking in the bigs and seeing if he can continue the success that he's had in the plate. We know he's not the best fielder in the world, but even if DJ Stewart is your DH in the 2021 season, I think you would take that. And his spring training so far has certainly indicated that of the outfielders that we've talked about that might have a chance to make this team on opening day, whether it be Ryan McKenna or a longer shot Yusniel Diaz, I think DJ Stewart probably has the leg up going in and continues to have the leg up if he is playing this well in spring training.
Yeah, I mean, a good first performance, of course, in spring from DJ, getting that 2-run homer and then also hitting a ball pretty hard that was actually caught. But
yes,
I think I don't think it's his job to lose per se, but I think it is definitely he has the leg up at this point. One guy who I don't think is going to make the team, Brendan, Jorge Lopez. Poor performance the other day, just in one start. But we thought that he was on the outside looking in to begin with it.
Well, and there's also so much pressure on guys like Jorge Lopez, Thomas Eshelman, Bruce Zimmermann, these pitchers that are kind of on the cusp of potentially making the starting rotation, but really need to come out in spring training and have really good performances if they are going to solidify that spot. Because like you said, Paul, they are on the outside looking in already, and they need to continually perform in order to work their way into the rotation. So it's an uphill battle to start.
Yeah, and in terms of the other starting pitchers, I think that we're going to see the full gamut of starting pitchers that we already saw, the 2 Rule 5 guys yesterday in that game. I think the pressure in terms of starters to make the team, to perform well in spring in order to make the team, is probably on those Rule 5 guys, because I think Mike Elias's front office, the Brandon Hyde, they've already seen Thomas Eshelman, they've seen Jorge Lopez in action. They really have not seen Max Sorolla or Tyler Wells other than video that they've gotten from teams' alternate sites.
Right.
So they are really getting a fresh look at them, which can be good if they perform well. And both those guys, Wells and Sorolla, threw scoreless innings yesterday. But they are on the outside looking in for this team, because that 26-man roster does not have too many open spots. But they could carve out a role for themselves if they pitch well enough in spring.
Well, and it's easy to look at spring training and kind of look at it as a tune-up, especially if you're looking at some of the better players on the team. Like Ryan Mountcastle is not fighting for a roster spot right now. But spring training, while it might not mean a lot to us because the games don't count for the regular season, it means a lot to these players that are close to making the Major League roster but aren't quite there. I mean, the prospects, obviously, if they don't make the roster, they're going to return back to AA, AAA, wherever they might be. But for somebody like Jorge Lopez or Thomas Eshelman, if they don't make the Orioles roster out of spring training, if they don't really flash in these spring training games, they just might not be on a roster at all, because they're probably not finding their way back to the minor leagues.
Yeah, and especially for guys like Eshelman, who is on a minor league deal, it is easier for the Orioles to stash them in the minors, as opposed to if a guy is on the 40-man roster, they would have to remove him from the 40-man roster, put him subject to waivers. Other teams can claim him. If he goes unclaimed, then he goes back into the organization at the lower level, and it would accept an option probably to AAA. So for the guys that are on these minor league deals with invites to spring training, that includes Wade LeBlanc, Felix Hernandez, Matt Harvey.
Yeah.
The Orioles would have to remove somebody from their 40-man roster in order for these guys to make the team. Those 2 Rule 5 guys already have a spot in the 40-man roster. But if they get sent back, that opens up 2 spots on the 40-man roster. So then you start to look at if they do add, or Fernando Abad. So LeBlanc, Abad, Harvey, Hernandez. Then you start to look at Ashton Goudeau. He's kind of sitting there on the 40-man roster. Probably not going to stick around for a whole lot. And you can look at other guys to cut from that 40-man roster.
Yeah, the 40-man roster is interesting because, like you said, there are some guys that feel like they probably should be on the 40-man roster or might be on the 40-man roster once the season begins. And then there's some that are kind of weird to be on there, like an Ashton Goudeau, who we haven't really talked about as a guy who might potentially make an impact in 2021. He still could. He's still on the 40-man roster, but he's not exactly on our radar in terms of guys that could make a huge impact for 2021.
Outside looking in.
Yes.
All right, should we get to the draft?
Let's do it.
Let's draft. This is going to take a while. This is 34 rounds.
Yeah.
I believe. No, 17 rounds.
17 rounds,
34
players.
There we go.
You got it. We
Let's
came
discuss,
up with the game. You think we would know the rules.
You would think, but we did this yesterday, kind of scrambling. Essentially, it is very similar to the All Oriole Park at Camden Yards draft that we did back in January when there was absolutely nothing to talk about. However, there are 2 teams here, not 3. Sorry, Connor Newcomb. You've been given the boot. We are going to be drafting 5 starting pitchers, 3 relievers. All-time manager is Brandon Hyde. He's just
he is the manager for both the teams. Just go with it.
And then every position around the diamond and a DH.
Yes.
Am I forgetting any positions?
No, you're not.
I think that's it.
We're not drafting like a bench bat. We're not drafting a ton of relievers, frankly, because we're going to run out of players.
Yeah. So essentially, not everybody on the 40-man roster will be drafted. And those 4 guys that you mentioned, Thomas Eshelman, Wade LeBlanc, Felix Hernandez, and Matt Harvey, 4 of kind of the preferred spring training invites, the guys that we think could make
the big name minor league signings.
Yes. Are included in this as well.
Yes.
We did a coin flip yesterday.
Yep.
Which means that you have the first. You won the coin flip. You took the first overall pick.
I did.
It's a snake order draft.
It is.
You get the first, the 4th, the 5th pick. I get 2nd and 3rd, and so on and so forth.
Indeed.
This is going to be tough to follow.
Yeah.
Much like our game last week. Just stick with us. If you're doing other work while listening to this podcast, stop your work. Just listen to the podcast.
Just focus on our podcast.
All right. Brendan, have you thought about who you're taking with this number 1 overall pick?
Paul, I can't think of a thing that I have thought of more than who I am taking with this first overall pick.
Wow.
It is, look, it's going to really set the course for the rest of the draft.
As number 1 picks do.
Number 1 picks tend to do. We've kind of agreed that there are some tiers of top guys, and I think I'm going to pull a move similar to your all-o-passy draft move, where there is one top pitcher who is better than the rest, and, well, I would like him to be on my team. So with my number 1 overall pick, I am going to be selecting John Means.
I figured.
Yeah, I don't know if John Means is necessarily going to be the best Oriole of 2021. I don't know if he will be the most valuable Oriole. However, I think the gap between John Means and the second and third best pitchers on the Orioles is larger than the gap between, say, the best hitter and the second or third best hitter on the Orioles. So I think going with John Means first overall solidifies my rotation. I've got the ace at the top. I think John Means has the potential to have an all-star 2021 season if he pitches the way he did at the end of 2020. We should also probably say, Paul, that we are drafting this team for the purpose of the team that we think is going to have the best 2021 season, not the best team 10 years from now. So I'm going with John Means. I think he is an all-star caliber starting pitcher, and I want him on my team.
That's a good pick because people are saying bold on YouTube. Bart,
I think it is a bold pick because...
It is a bold pick, but the reason that you did that, Brendan, is because you put me in a tough spot here.
A toughie.
With this second overall pick and the third overall pick, because now I'm sitting here and thinking, I think there are really 2 good starters in this draft.
Yep.
And, you know, the rest of the field, I think the gap between 2 and 3 in terms of the starting pitching is pretty wide. Do I have to go pitcher here? That's the question.
That's the question.
Do I risk getting boxed out of a good starter? Because if I don't go with the starter with either of these picks, you could take the next guy, the next available starter. We're not going to say his name, but I think I know who that guy's going to be.
Right.
I thought about it. I thought, should I try to build lineup of death? I ended up not going with lineup of death.
Okay.
I think I'm going to go here with the back-to-back selections, 2-3. I'm going to start with not the all-star of the 2019 season, but the best position player of this 2019 season. I'm going to go with Trey Mancini as my second overall pick. Look, if he returns to anywhere near the form that we saw from him in 2019, and given what we saw in that first at-bat, I think there's a good chance.
Yeah.
Trey Mancini is well-deserved of this second overall pick.
Yep.
I'm going to slot him, for right now, I'll stick him at first base, although depending on how my roster shakes out, we'll see.
Yeah.
And then as my next pick, Brendan, I cannot get boxed out of starting pitching here.
This is
true.
Just
can't do it.
Can't do it.
So is this a reach at the number 3 overall pick in terms of quality of player? Absolutely. However, I can't afford to have Keegan Akin as my ace of my staff.
Right.
So I'm going to go with Dean Kremer as my number 3 overall pick.
Yep.
So I could get slammed for that in terms of taking...
You could, but there is a very real scenario where I am very mean to you, and if you do not
That's every scenario.
Right. And if you don't take Dean Kremer there, I could take one of the 2 remaining hitters that are very good, and then Dean Kremer as well, and you're left with Keegan Akin as your best pitcher if you end up getting him. So I think it's a smart pick here at 3. I don't think he will be the 3rd best Oriole this season, but you can't get totally boxed out of starting pitching. So I agree with your pick here, Paul.
All right, Brendan, I think I know who you're going with 4.
Yeah, this leaves me in a pretty easy position with my next 2 picks, honestly. Number 4, I'm going to take Ryan Mountcastle.
Yep.
I think he is going to have a fantastic 2021 because if 2020 showed us anything, it is that Ryan Mountcastle is full of potential. A .333 batting average, 10 extra base hits. I know he's not the best fielder in the world in left field, so for right now, I'll probably stick him at first base.
Love that I'm getting roasted in the comments for taking Kremer already. Go ahead.
Yeah, but hey, if Ryan Mountcastle isn't the best fielder in the world, I suppose I'll just have to take, I don't know, a Gold Glove finalist with my next pick, and that'll be Anthony Santander, the 2020 most valuable Oriole is my pick here at number 5 overall. I think he is probably the best pure outfielder of the top 3 hitters. There was pretty clearly a top 3 of Trey Mancini, Anthony Santander, and Ryan Mountcastle. I'm happy with the 2 I got. Anthony Santander, a .261 batting average, 11 homers, 32 RBIs, 25 extra base hits last season before getting injured.
Yeah.
Anthony Santander is my pick here, and I'm pretty comfortable with how this is going so far.
Yeah, I think you have the better team so far. I think that number 1 pick. I'm not going to make excuses for my team, Brendan.
No, go ahead.
But I'm going to start to make some excuses. Yeah. I think the number 1 pick is an ideal spot because if you look at the order of the draft, yes, Dean Kremer is a reach for my spot, and I left you wide open to take Santander and Mountcastle right there, which hurts.
But you have to take
Kremer.
Kremer.
I had to take Kremer. The only question is, which of those 3, I think Mountcastle, Santander, and Mancini, do you like the best? And I think if you ask any Orioles fan, they'd have them in 3 different orders.
Yep.
Because I think that you could make cases for and against all 3 of those guys. We could see a sophomore slump for Mountcastle. Don't think it's going to happen, but you could see it. Could see Anthony Santander come back down to earth just a little bit. Could see Trey Mancini not get as many days in the field as he would in previous years and could be struggling to come back. But no matter what, you're going to have those 3 guys.
No matter
as your
who
top
you
3
picked
position
there,
players.
And I think no matter who you picked between those 3, you are getting a really good bat in the middle of the lineup, and you really couldn't go wrong with any of those 3. I'm glad that I didn't have to pick the best one out of those 3, which was also part of my motivation for drafting John Means, because I didn't want to be the one to have to select between those 3 guys. But really, you can't go wrong with those 3.
All right, another back-to-back spot for me right here, Brendan.
Paul, they're all going to be back-to-back.
They're all going to be back-to-back from here on out. I need to take the best shortstop available because I want to leave you in a tough position of having to take Richie Martin or Pat Valaika or maybe Ramon Urias at that point. So I'm going to go ahead and take Freddy Galvis with my number 6 overall pick. We're starting to get into we're out of the top tier in terms of quality players, right into the middle ground, I think, for this Orioles roster. And with my next pick, I do want to get a jump on the outfield.
Okay.
Because I have Trey at first, I have Freddie at short, and I want to go with Austin Hayes right here.
Yep.
Because I can stick him at center, and I can stick him in either of the corner spots, in left or right. And if I didn't take a center fielder here, Brendan, that would leave you with the potential to take both Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins and kind of take a big bite out of center field there, because you could put Hayes in left, you could put Mullins in center, and then that would leave me with making a decision between Ryan McKenna, Yusniel Diaz, Jahmai Jones in center.
Right.
That's not a position I want to be in. So I'm going to take Austin Hayes for now. I'm going to slot him into center field.
Yeah, Freddy Galvis, I think, probably had one of the biggest gaps out of anybody in terms of the quality of the starter versus the quality of the backup.
Yeah.
And Freddy Galvis was a good pick, and then Austin Hayes was probably just the best overall player left available.
And some people like Cedric Mullins over Austin Hayes. At this point, Austin Hayes, I think, is I just would rather have Austin Hayes at this point. Cedric Mullins was awesome last year. Going to be hitting just left-handed from now on instead of a switch hitter. However, still has a career WAR in the negatives. So I'm going to go with Austin Hayes at this point. He has struggled a little bit with injuries over the course of his career, but I feel good about slotting him in. Brendan.
This is an interesting spot for me because I don't want to get boxed out of positions completely.
Yep.
And with that in mind, I think my next pick here is going to be Yolmer Sanchez.
Okay.
Yolmer Sanchez, I'm not sure if I'm going to put him at second base or third base yet, because we'll kind of see how those positions shake out. But I like the versatility that Sanchez brings between either being able to play second base or third base. I know he's not the best hitter in the world, but he is a fantastic fielder. He won a Gold Glove at second base, so he might end up there. And then the next player I'm going to take, I think it's a little bit of a reach, but I'm going for the versatility again, and that's going to be Pat Valaika.
Wow.
I am probably going to end up putting Pat Valaika at shortstop because I think he is a better option than Richie Martin or Ramon Urias to play shortstop.
Yep.
And I am worried about a scenario where you take Pat Valaika to play a different position, and then I have to either start Richie Martin or Ramon Urias at shortstop, which is not really a position I want to be in. So I'm reaching on Pat Valaika, but he is better offensively than probably you would think. He hit 277 with 8 home runs last year. I know he's not fantastic in the field, but he had a WAR of 0.7 compared to a 0.3 of Freddy Galvis last year. So Pat Valaika is going to be my slightly out of position shortstop. I gotta say
that is a surprise.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming, Brendan.
Yeah, I didn't want to get totally boxed out.
Yeah, well,
of a shortstop position, so I'm going Pat Valaika.
All right. Yikes! Because you know what that leaves me with, Brendan? Your favorite player.
Oh no! Don't do it to me.
I'm gonna go ahead and take Cedric Mullins as my next pick. Well, I had to. He's the best player available at this point.
Yeah.
I just bashed him. But, I mean, now I can stick Cedric Mullins in center.
That you could.
I can stick Austin Hayes. Let's stick him, I guess, in left. I don't have any other outfielders at this point, do I? No. All I have right now, I have Dean Kremer as my ace. I've got Trey Mancini at first. I've got Freddy at short. I've got Austin Hayes. I'll stick him for the time being. Did I just say left field?
Yes. You can put Austin Hayes in left field, and then...
He can go right as well if I want him to.
Yeah.
But we'll see. All right, and then I got Cedric Mullins in center field.
Yep.
Feeling very good about that. All right. Pretty good. Somebody said Gunnar Henderson, not going to be drafted in this draft, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Come back in a couple years and maybe. All right, so now I'm sitting on the board, and I'm thinking about, do I go with the next best starting pitcher? I could, and try to build my starting staff that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at it, and I feel pretty good. Yolmer Sanchez is off the board. Yeah, I think because I lost on John Means and Dean Kremer, I think is not a true ace. I might have to go with a starter at this point. Or what other positions could I get boxed out of? This is the part of the draft, as in everyone.
Every single draft, there is a moment where Paul Mancano looks at his draft board and says, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know
and
what to
we
do.
have reached that moment in the draft where I think I have a pretty steady plan going forward.
The problem is there aren't too many second basemen.
This is true.
Yeah, not too many second basemen.
Yep.
I think I need to gamble on a position player here.
But you
Brendan.
can't take both of my favorite players here, Paul.
Who's your other favorite? Oh, could I?
You could.
That feels a little early at
Does
this point.
he dare?
No.
He doesn't dare.
I don't dare.
He does not.
I am going to go with, I'm going to go ahead and dare. I'm going to go ahead and take Jahmai Jones.
Wow.
With the next pick.
This hurts my heart.
It is a big pick.
Yeah.
But I need a second baseman. Can't afford to not have a second baseman. The only other option for me was to wait and try to take Richie Martin and make him a second baseman.
Right.
Because he has played second base, not at the major league level, but in the minors. However, I think you're going to take him and make him your shortstop at some point. So I'm going to take...
I have Pat Valaika at shortstop.
Oh, you do have Pat Valaika.
Yeah.
All right.
I reached on him
Richie Martin.
for the versatility.
I'm going to go with Jahmai Jones.
Okay.
I'm going to make him my second baseman, Brendan.
Well, I am sad.
All right. Who's next for you?
There goes my planning.
Who is on your roster right now?
Goodness. On my roster right now, I have John Means as my ace. I've got Ryan Mountcastle. I have Yolmer Sanchez, Pat Valaika, and Anthony Santander.
Okay. Go ahead. Next pick.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. So I've got Anthony Santander
now who's
in
taking
the
a long
outfield. This has been about 5 seconds. I need you to take a chill pill over there, Paul.
All right.
I'm going to go... You took a little bit of a risky pick with Jahmai Jones.
Yep.
I'm going to take a little bit of a risky pick as well and take my center fielder, and that's going to be Yusniel Diaz.
Whoa. All right.
Yusniel Diaz, I think, will probably end up playing a corner outfield with the Orioles because of Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes. However, we have heard throughout his time in the minors that Yusniel Diaz is capable of playing any of the 3 outfield positions. So I'm pretty comfortable taking Yusniel Diaz as my center fielder. The bat has looked great so far in spring training. I think that he will get a call up to the majors relatively soon, and I wanted to shore up that outfield a little bit. So Yusniel Diaz becomes my center fielder. And then, Paul, I think I'm going to take Keegan Akin.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
As my next starting pitcher. I mean, I've got John Means already, who is the ace of the 3 pitchers that have been selected so far. It's too early to take a reliever, I think, and it's probably too early to reach on some other starters. So I'm going to take Keegan Akin as my number 2 in the starting rotation, and I've got the first and third best pitchers in the Orioles rotation, which I'm pretty happy about. So Keegan Akin is my selection here.
That's a good pick. I think that's probably the best pick. He was the other guy I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And I didn't take him just because I think that, I can field a team, a rotation with the guys available.
You certainly can.
I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had enough. There were enough guys just at second base for me to be able to go there.
Yep.
All right. Third base is open for me right now. Catcher's open. I still have an open spot in right field, which is curious. So I could. How's your outfield looking, Brendan?
In my outfield right now, I have Yusniel Diaz in center and then Anthony Santander in right. So I could use a left fielder, or I could switch around Santander, put him in left. I don't know. I need a corner outfielder.
Yeah, you do. All right. I'm looking at the board right now. This is the part, again, where I just stall.
Yep.
Do you want to talk more about your team while I stall here?
Let's talk more about my team. I think my starters are setting me apart so far. I've got both John Means and Keegan Akin, and then I've just got to fill out the rest of the 3, where you have Dean Kremer, who is probably a 2 or 3 in an ideal Orioles rotation. Then you've got to fill out the rest of the 4 somehow. And at this point, we're kind of left with the higher profile minor league signings at the starting pitching spot, like Felix Hernandez, Matt Harvey, Thomas Eshelman, Wade LeBlanc. And then some prospects that we could see, like Michael Baumann and Zac Lowther, who are both on the 40-man roster that could come up and have Keegan Akin-esque seasons this year. So the starting pitching could come down to, do you gamble on minor league signings like Felix Hernandez or Matt Harvey that they will show some semblance of the pitchers that they were a few years ago?
All right, you can stop stalling.
Okay, thank you. I was running out of things to say.
All right, my next pick, I have to go with best player available here, and that is going to put me in a spot where I'm going to take Pedro Severino as my catcher.
Okay.
That's going to make, essentially, because there are really only 2 catchers, and we made the rule before this draft also that we could not.
Yes.
We can't box the other person out of catcher and force.
Because.
So the other person to play Chris Davis.
If you were to draft both Pedro Severino and Shawn Sisco, there would be literally no catchers for you to select. Yeah. It's not like the all Camden Yards draft where you would have to select a catcher that just wasn't very good for a few years. There would be literally no options available.
Yeah. So I feel pretty good about that. And then at third base, no, I'm going to wait on third base.
He's going to wait on third base.
I'm going to take, should I go with starting rotation?
Paul, I stalled for like half an hour.
All right. Best player available once again, Brendan. I'm going to go with Tanner Scott in my bullpen.
Yep.
So now I feel like the best reliever. I think it's debatable. You could probably push back on that if you'd like. But I'm getting a guy who had a sub-2 ERA last year, still pretty young, 25, 26 years old. I'm going to feel good with Tanner Scott in my bullpen.
Yeah, Tanner Scott is a solid pick. I think you can make a case that there are some other guys who are close to Tanner Scott, but I think Tanner Scott is probably the best reliever that you could take. I've been waiting on reliever because I think there are so many good relievers and we're only drafting 6 of them.
Yeah.
So I have felt comfortable waiting on reliever. And I think, honestly, I'm still going to wait here with my next 2 picks.
Okay.
I think I'm going to... I think I'm going to fill out third base because I still have that spot open. I'm going to take Rio Ruiz.
That's fair.
I think there's a case to be made that you could wait and maybe take a Rylan Bannon in that situation, but I'm still holding out hope for Rio Ruiz that power is going to show up more consistently. He has really good hot stretches and then some really bad cold stretches. If Rio Ruiz can put things together a little bit, I think he could be a solid third baseman. Goodness, words are hard. His defense is already solid. The offense needs to become more consistent. So I am banking on that consistency with my selection here with Rio Ruiz. And that finishes out my infield except for catcher. I've got Ryan Mountcastle at first, Yolmer Sanchez at second, Rio Ruiz at third, and Pat Valleca at shortstop. I need 3 more starters, position players. I need a catcher, a corner outfielder, and a DH. And I need a lot of pitching. So do I think here that the second best reliever is worth taking, or do I put you in a very precarious spot?
Try to box me out of starters?
And take another starter.
You could.
The problem, though, is that I don't know if there is another starter that separates himself enough from the rest of the pack, which makes it very interesting.
The starters are going to get interesting right near the end, I'll tell you, because we have a bunch of prospects here that you could throw in there. Remember, Alexander Wells, Zac Lowther, Michael Baumann, all three of those guys are on the 40-man roster, so they are eligible to take here. And we have to have 10 starters. So,
this is interesting. Do I go with a corner outfielder? Do I go with a starting pitcher?
Do you want me to stall?
No, I think I'm going to make my decision here.
Okay.
And I think that decision here is going to be a player that I have likened to Rio Ruiz a whole bunch in terms of this being his last shot in the majors.
I think I know who this is going to be.
And it's going to be DJ Stewart.
That's a good pick.
I am aboard the DJ Stewart hype train in spring training after a grand total of 2 spring training games. I am now convinced that this is the DJ Stewart redemption tour. I am going to be putting DJ Stewart in my corner outfield. I'll put him in left because I've got Anthony Santander in right. And I'm feeling pretty good about my position players at this point, Paul. I've got my outfield completely done now with DJ Stewart, Yusniel Diaz, and Anthony Santander. I know Stewart might be a bit of a reach at this spot. However, I think he is better than the next outfield alternatives here. So DJ Stewart is my pick. We'll hope and cross our fingers for a DJ Stewart resurgence.
I think that's a good pick, Brendan. I think that's a good pick. Now, in terms of my team, I have Dean Kremer in that rotation, and that's it. And in terms of best player available, I could probably take some other guys. However, I cannot afford to get boxed out of pitching, and I know that you're just chomping your...
I am chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
I almost did it there, but I think DJ Stewart had to be the pick.
Next up, I have to take who I think is the best starter remaining. That's Felix Hernandez. That's King Felix.
That is
close. Future Hall of Famer King Felix Hernandez.
Keep building it up, Paul.
That is Cy Young winner. No-hitter thrower. 6-time All-Star.
6.4 ERA, Felix Hernandez.
6-time All-Star.
Felix
Hernandez as my number 2 starter. And then I should probably take another guy here. I don't know how many. I do need to fill a corner outfield spot. How many outfielders are left?
Paul, you need a third baseman. You need a right fielder. And you need a DH.
Are there any outfielders left?
There is one outfielder left that you pretty much have to take at some point. I will not be selecting him because then I would totally box you out of outfielders.
Wow, thank you.
Because then you would have to put Trey Mancini in right field. And
it's going to be the all-defense outfield.
I'm not thinking that Trey Mancini is going to play much right field this year, so I don't want to...
Can you promise right now that you're not going to box me out?
That feels like a big promise to
make. You just said you're not going to do it.
Okay. I don't want to do it, but will I?
But you may.
I've done...
You have a DH spot open, right?
That I do.
All right.
So I still could take this player.
Okay. In terms of starters, though, I'm going to take I just took a veteran here. I'm going to take a swing on a young guy.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Michael Baumann.
All right.
My next pick. So that I have now Dean Kremer, Michael Baumann, and Felix Hernandez as my 3 starting pitchers.
I like that pick.
All right, Brendan.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I'm going to go right back to back. If you didn't take Michael Baumann, I probably would have taken Michael Baumann and Zac Lowther in back-to-back picks. So I'm going to take the other one, and that's going to be Zac Lowther as the number 3 in my rotation. I feel pretty confident that Michael Baumann and Zac Lowther...
threw a scoreless inning yesterday.
A scoreless... We were joking about it yesterday, about the hardest hit scoreless inning we have ever seen. He had some hard hit balls, but he was going up against a lot of good players on the Phillies. He was in an inning that included Andrew McCutchen, Gene Segura.
Yeah,
so.
it was basically a lot of Philly starters.
Yes.
And he is probably not going to start neither of these guys. We don't think Michael Baumann or Zac Lowther is going to be on this team to start the year.
Right.
But we think that they will play in 2021.
Yes, and I think Baumann and Zac Lowther both have the capability of having Dean Kremer, Keegan Akin-esque seasons in 2021. So I like that we're both taking a gamble on those 2 guys, and I think they are pretty solid as the number 3 in both of our rotations. So at this point, I have 2 more starting pitchers. I have not selected a reliever yet, and I've still got a catcher and a DH available. I can wait on catcher because you are literally not allowed to draft Chance Sisco. Do I go for a DH? I feel like that's probably a little bit too early to do.
Okay.
So this is another interesting spot where do I take another starting pitcher or do I take who I think is the best reliever available? And I think after Michael Baumann and Zac Lowther, there is a pretty big, not pretty big, but there is at least a little bit of a drop-off in starting pitching talent. So I think I'm going to go reliever here.
Okay.
The question is, what reliever do I take? Because there is a bundle of guys that had fantastic seasons last year, and it's really a question of, since we are drafting this team for going ahead in 2021, who do we think is going to continue that success into next season? I think the guy I'm going to go with... I'm tossing it up in my head between two.
Clearly. Just take one, Brent.
I'm going to take Cesar Valdez.
Ooh, okay.
I am confident in Cesar Valdez. I love the redemption story. I was tossing up a few relievers, and at the end of the day, I don't think I can go wrong with any of the relievers that I had at the top of my board after Tanner Scott, because I think Tanner Scott is the clear number one guy, and there's a bundle after. So Cesar Valdez is the pick here. He was unbelievable in 2020. He had a 1.26 ERA, a whip under 0.7, 7.5 strikeouts per 9, and a WAR of 1. Cesar Valdez is my selection.
Somebody
as
likes
my
that
first
pick.
Relief pitcher.
Corey on Facebook saying Valdez is still on the board. Sleeper pick.
Thank you, Corey.
So now we each have one reliever. We each have 3 starters.
Yes.
Thinking about... I do have to fill right field and DH.
That you do.
And I really can't... I can't afford to get boxed out there in terms of... So I'm going to go ahead and take Ryan McKenna.
Yep.
He's makes the most sense. He's the only outfielder left on the board.
Yeah.
I think.
Brian McKenna...
Unless I wanted to move Jahmai Jones.
You would have to either move Jahmai Jones to center field and then move... At that point, you would have 3 center fielders with Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Jahmai Jones.
Defense everywhere. If you can have 3 center fielders in the outfield...
Yeah. Whereas I have 0 true center fielders in my outfield. Or you could have moved Trey Mancini into right field, but all indications are kind of pointing to the fact that Trey Mancini is going to be the Orioles' first baseman. So Ryan McKenna was definitely the smart pick there. I don't know if I would have taken him as my DH because he hasn't had the best hitting numbers in the minor leagues. But you know what? Ryan McKenna is still a solid pick. He's going to be great defensively in right field.
And then next up, in terms of I really don't know who you're going to take with your DH.
Hoo-hoo.
Do you have an idea?
Nope.
Good.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Great. All right. Then I'm probably going to fill out... I could take another reliever.
Paul, would you need me to stall again?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and take the only other infielder. I'm just filling positions at this point. The only other infielder, and that's Ryland Bannon.
Yep.
And I'm going to stick him at third base. He can play both third and second. I'm going to stick him at third base, where I have Jahmai Jones at second, going with a very young second base, third base combo, but I have the vets in Trey Mancini at first. I have Freddy Galvis at short. That's the Ryan and Ryland, back-to-back picks.
Yeah, well, I think Ryland Bannon might have been pretty close to the best position players still available.
Yeah.
The only question with Ryland Bannon is how soon does he get called up to the majors?
Yeah.
That's the question about Ryland Bannon. This leaves me in an interesting spot because I still have that DH open, and then, of course, Chance Sisco will be selected at some point. I don't need to take him at whenever. Who do I go with here? I could go starting pitcher, I could go reliever, or I could take a DH. I don't think there's a clear DH available, so that's going to be a wait-and-see kind of thing. I'm going to take another reliever here, and it's probably just going to be the reliever that I had tossed around before, and that's going to be Paul Fry.
Good call.
I think Paul Fry I could have selected instead of Cesar Valdez with my last pick, but I'm pretty confident that Paul Fry is going to have another solid season in 2021. He had a 2.45 ERA and 11.9 strikeouts per 9. Paul Fry was really, really good last year, and I think he will continue to be really, really good in 2021. And man, do I just finish out my bullpen here because I'm not ready to select a starter? Well, Paul, I might.
Are you?
I think I'm just going to take another reliever here because I don't see a starter that I'm going to select at this pick. And this isn't going to be a guy that had a good 2020, but it's a guy that I think has the potential to have a very good 2021.
Yeah.
And that's going to be Hunter Harvey.
I figured.
I think if Hunter Harvey stays healthy, he has the potential to be one of the better relievers on the team. He has the potential to be the Orioles closer. The stuff is there with Hunter Harvey. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay consistent. And I think of the relievers remaining, I am feeling comfortable taking the gamble that we will get a healthy, consistent Hunter Harvey in 2021.
I think it's a good gamble to take.
Yeah. So that's the gamble I'm taking, and I am done with my relievers.
Yeah, so now I can wait on relievers.
Yep.
You can wait on a catcher.
Yep.
I think clearly here I have to go with starting pitchers.
Right.
And the first pick with this starting pitcher, I tossed it around in my head, but I think at this point I'm going to go with Thomas Eshelman.
Okay.
Because he had a 3.89 ERA.
Yeah, he was
year.
Good last year.
Bouncing back and forth between the bullpen and the starting rotation. I don't know how many starts he's going to get this year, if any.
Right.
However, I think that of the options available, he's probably the best remaining. And then the only other question is, which guy do you like of these two? So maybe I wait a bit, but if I wait on both of these starters, then you could take either one of these starters. And of course, yeah, I think, no, I could wait. I could wait, Brendan.
He could.
I could wait on there. Thinking about it.
Still thinking.
I could wait.
He could.
I think I'm going to wait because you have 2 spots left in your rotation. I have that DH spot open. There really is not. Somebody said, I hope you're writing this down.
Me too.
Me too. I'm trying to come up with
I am writing it
the
down.
lower
yes.
thirds here so that I'm trying to figure out. All right. There really are very, very few options left at DH.
Yep.
Very few.
Yep.
And the question is, which of these 2 guys do you want?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and with that other starter spot, I'm going to take Bruce Zimmermann.
Okay.
So now I have filled out my rotation.
Yes, you have.
And I've given you your free pick of the final 2 guys that you would like to take.
Well,
now.
I have a free pick with my starters because you have filled out your starting rotation. I have a free pick at catcher because you have Pedro Severino and you are not allowed to take Chance Sisco. So I could theoretically wait on both starting pitcher
Gotta take a DH.
and catcher. So here I can just take whatever DH that I feel like. So it's just a question of, well, which DH do I feel like?
This is the ultimate stall right
There
here.
aren't a ton of position players left.
Yeah.
You've got Richie Martin. You've got Tyler Nevin, Ramon Urias, Chris Davis. You took Ryan McKenna. And I think for my DH spot, I'm going to take a guy that is underrated and that I am excited about. He is not talked about with the Orioles' top prospects, but I think he is more exciting than people think, and that's going to be Tyler Nevin.
I figured.
Recently acquired. He can play first base or third, so he fits kind of that bigger bat DH role pretty well. In Double-A in 2019, he hit .251 with a .744 OPS, 13 homers, 61 RBIs, and 41 extra base hits. So I think Tyler Nevin has a major league caliber bat.
Yeah.
And I am comfortable with him at my DH spot. We don't talk about him a lot with the top prospects, and I think he has a chance to be a pretty solid contributor for the O's in 2021, whether that's first base, third base, DH, wherever you need him to go. My next pick, I'm just going to wait on Chance Sisco because there's no reason to take him, although there's also no reason to take a starting pitcher.
There's no,
I can take whoever I feel like with any rhyme or reason right now. I'm going to go with Matt Harvey.
Yeah, I thought so.
I mean, I am pretty confident with my top 3 with John Means, Keegan Akin, and Zac Lowther. I think I can afford to take a chance with Matt Harvey as my number 4 starter and hope that he returns to maybe 2018 form. I'm not going to shoot as high as a 2013, 2014 form, but Matt Harvey is my selection here. I know he did not have good 2020 stats. I'm not going to read them, but I think Matt Harvey...
that would be, I'll read him for you, 11.57 ERA.
Yeah, not fantastic
In
2020 numbers
games.
for Matt Harvey, but I'm hoping that he is able to work with the Orioles pitching coaches. He's able to figure out some things to become a more effective pitcher with that little bit diminished fastball velocity. So Matt Harvey as my number 4 starter, I am totally comfortable with.
All right. So you've taken your 2 guys?
Yep. Paul, you have 3 selections remaining. You need 2 relievers and a DH.
So I'm going to go first reliever, Travis Lakins Sr. right here.
All right.
Had another guy with a sub-4 ERA out of the bullpen last year.
Yep.
And then as my DH, I'm going to take Ramon Urias.
Okay.
He is the only other guy available on the 40-man roster. That leaves me with just 1 reliever spot open. Brendan, you have 2 picks.
That I do. And I can take Chance Sisco here as my catcher.
All right.
I did not need to take a catcher after you took Pedro Severino because of our rule. So I could wait on Chance Sisco until the very last possible moment. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to wait to the second to last very possible moment.
And your last pick?
So I'm taking Chance Sisco here. My last pick is going to be whatever starter
I'm
I
just
feel
rolling through the end of this.
Yeah, you really are.
I want to get to these rosters.
I could either go Wade LeBlanc, Jorge Lopez, or Alexander Wells, who I don't think is really going to get called up anytime soon.
Has like a slight muscle strain. So
and I think that's going to put Alexander Wells behind. So it's really either LeBlanc or Jorge Lopez. I'm going to go with Wade LeBlanc.
Yep, good call.
I think I would rather go with the veteran presence of LeBlanc rather than Lopez. Lopez had a shaky outing. Not sure if he makes the team. I think LeBlanc has a better chance to make the team. And LeBlanc, of course, he's just a crafty lefty.
He is.
Fine with him at my number 5 starting rotation spot. Paul, you have 1 reliever remaining.
I do.
Who's it going to be?
It's a great question. I'm going to go with Shawn Armstrong. Another guy who had a great ERA last year. I don't know if he'll be able to continue it in his, age 31 season, age 30. But
he had a 1.80 ERA last year.
Struggled with injuries.
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy and be the same Shawn Armstrong that we saw in 2020, I think that he will end up being a good pick. So let's run through our rosters real quick, Brendan.
Let us do it.
You start.
My starting rotation, I've got John Means, the number 1 overall pick, Keegan Akin, Zac Lowther, Matt Harvey, and Wade LeBlanc. In my bullpen, I've got Cesar Valdez, Paul Fry, and Hunter Harvey. My lineup, Chance Sisco at catcher, Ryan Mountcastle, Yolmer Sanchez, Rio Ruiz, and Pat Valaika in the infield. The outfield consists of DJ Stewart, Yusniel Diaz, and Anthony Santander. And my DH, Tyler Nevin.
And I'm sorry we don't have a graphic for this just yet because we've been doing this live, but you'll get to see that. We'll tweet these out at some point. At Paul Mancano, at Brendan Morty.
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My starting rotation, Dean Kremer is my ace, Felix Hernandez, Michael Baumann, Thomas Eshelman, Bruce Zimmermann. My relievers, Tanner Scott, Travis Lakins Sr., Shawn Armstrong, Pedro Severino is behind the dish, Trey Mancini at first, Jahmai Jones at second, Freddy Galvis at short, Ryland Bannon at third, and in the outfield going left to right, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, Ryan McKenna, although all 3 of them are really center fielders, so stick them anywhere you would like at that point. And finally, DH, Ramon Urias. Brandon Hyde, both our managers.
Brandon Hyde is managing both teams.
And Mike Elias, both GMs.
Yes.
For this team.
Well, weren't we technically the GMs?
Yeah, I think we kind of were.
Who's to say?
I'm not going to lie. I like your team better than I like mine, Brendan.
Paul, I also like my team better than I like yours.
I'm happy.
If you also like my team better than you like Paul's, please let us know in the comments and make
Don't
fun
do
of
that.
Paul.
However, if you like my team better than you like Brendan's,
please make fun of Paul with me in the comments. I would very much appreciate it. Natalie says Brendan's team wins 8 out of 10 games head-to-head. She did say Brandon, but I glossed right over that.
Brandon's team, which is both of our teams, because that's Brandon Hyde's.
That is Brandon Hyde's team, yes. I do like my team. I think the number 1 pick gave me an advantage with John Means, and then I was able to get both Ryan Mountcastle and Anthony Santander, so that put me on a pretty good foot, I think, to start things off.
I think the key is that drafts are very fun.
Yeah.
We can draft literally anything. Give us anything that you'd like.
We have done the All Camden Yards draft. We just did the Orioles 40-man roster draft. And, of course, our best draft was the pasta draft.
Yes. Only a 3-round pasta draft.
So if you have more ideas for fantasy drafts,
but if you sign up for our exclusive newsletter, you can get the full 27-round pasta draft.
Yes.
You would not believe my 25th round pick. I'll just say that.
Wow. We really took a deep dive into pasta.
Not taken.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
If you have more ideas, let us know. We have already had a couple of really good fan suggestions that we might do over the coming months because we like doing fantasy drafts. They're fun. We hope you enjoy them as well.
Like, subscribe, tune in next week. We will be back in a week with more spring training action to break down. Of course, follow him at Brendan Morty on Twitter. I'm at Paul Mancano, and we'll see you next time.